All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lightyear Frontier. It's been a couple of days since the end of our last episode. I'd made a little bit of progress. I wanted to run through that with you before we take a look at our main objective for today, which is going to be how to customize and upgrade our mech and really make the most out of using it. The mech system is actually reasonably complex, and working out all the nuances and figuring out the best loadouts is something I've had a lot of fun with, and I recommend that you take a look at too. Now, real quick, before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about what's happened in the last couple days. First off, we've unlocked another milestone. We sent away several different packages, got some decent crop yields, but otherwise we haven't really done anything new or exciting. However, that milestone did unlock one new building which we put to work straight away, and that is the Seed Extractor Mark II, or the Seed Extractor 2. And if we come on over here and take a look, it looks like we have a whole bunch of other new crops ready to go. But we can come on over here and take a look at our resource delivery cannon, and we can see that that one gave us access to the merchant landing, which is another thing we want to take a look at today. The Seed Extractor 2, Storage Box 2, a handful of tool upgrades, trailers, which I'm quite interested to play with, and then the hot rod parts and another farm area size upgrade. Now, we haven't done that upgrade yet. We haven't taken a look at any of those mech upgrades yet. The only thing we've played with so far are the Seed Extractor 2s, and they work pretty much exactly the same as the original Seed Extractors, except that they are 5 times as fast. If we open this up, you can see that that takes 5 seeds to produce 10, or 5 plants to produce 10 seeds instead of 1 seed to produce 2 plants. So a single Seed Extractor Mark II is the equivalent of 5 Seed Extractors, and so that is good news. And so my goal with those was to try to get those Seed Extractors over here. So we'll go ahead and build a Seed Extractor Mark II there. Another one there. And another one there. And then inside of that, we can place any of our storage items. The seeds don't actually have a weight, so you can put as many of them as you want into a single item. We'll use the burlap sacks, make sure that all of our buildings are under the roof, have that increased efficiency buff. Perfect. So that is the only new building we've played with. But with being able to produce a lot more seeds, we need to be able to process a lot more farmland. And right now, watering is sort of the big chore, big challenge that we're running into. So we are doing all of our watering by hand still, and we haven't really found any way outside of the watering sort of capacity upgrade, which lets us, do a lot more at once. We still have to do it all by hand, which is kind of a pain. But we are going to start taking a look at the other tools and resources on the mech that will allow us to maximize our work and talk about how we can configure our mech in such a way that we have the easiest and best time using it, as well as getting the most out of it. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our mech depot and see what we can do. Now, we have a number of new mech upgrades, and one of these was something that we got a while back, and that is the Resource Vacuum Harvest Vortex. Let's go ahead and get that equipped and take a look at how it works, because that can help with harvesting. We also have another part that might work for us there, and that is that Field Harvester add-on. Let's go ahead and get those crafted up and equipped. All right, I've gone ahead and crafted those, so we can come in here to our resource vacuum and attach that resource vacuum harvest. Now you can see that we are up to 44 maximum power level, so we have plenty of room for some of these basic parts, although before long we might be able to see it. I've also made up one of the field harvesters, so we can go ahead and install that. Now let's pop into our mech and see how these new pieces of equipment improve our harvesting capacity and other tasks. So let's start with the field harvester over here. Now the field harvester is another transform add-on, so we can go ahead and do our transform there. Go ahead and drop our harvesting tool. Now unfortunately the field harvester add-on does break seeds, so we did break a couple of polyberry seeds there, which means they will not be growing to completion. So that is something to be wary of, something to keep in mind as we go. And that is probably the single biggest drawback, the reason that this is not the only tool we are going to consider or use here, because this allows us to do something very quickly when we have a sort of nice, easy structure to it. So like these rows of rabbage back here, we can go ahead and drop this down and we can just harvest all of this immediately. Very fast, very easy. And look at that. And the same is going to be true for this very large wheat field we have back here. You can simply go up and down the rows just like this, and we will be able to harvest. And this is actually super satisfying. This is one of my favorite parts of this game, is using the tractor in this way with a large field. Eventually we'll get, like, you know, a wider tool, so we'll be doing 5 or 7 or 9 rows at once, and the fields will scale to match. We'll have fields that are, you know, 5 or 7 times the size of this one, and it's just super satisfying to drive back and forth up and down the rows and see the crop harvesting happen and working and doing what it's supposed to do. It's super satisfying. So that is one of the tools we can use. The other one we can use that we just equipped is the Resource Harvester Vacuum. So this is one that's a little bit tricky. With this one, this is a separate tool mode, but there's not actually anything to indicate that. So if you go in and try and use your Resource Harvester Vacuum like always, it won't work. Instead, there's a right-click mode, and all the other tools that have like a special right-click mode work, but you'll see that the crops vibrate and break when we use right-click with that mod installed. And this is actually, if you aim a little further away, you can actually sort of walk up and down the rows and harvest 3 rows wide at a time. And one of the cool things about this one is that it won't break crops that are not ready to be harvested. This will only harvest things that are ready for picking. So you can safely use this in areas where you have sort of mixed plants growing, and it will work fine. The only issue with it is that it doesn't scale as well as the field harvester. The field harvester, as I mentioned, will be able to produce a much wider swath of ground, or process a much wider swath of ground. And so that will eventually scale up to being way better. But you can see here, we can use this Resource Harvester Vacuum, and it's only going to pick the crops that are ready for picking. And we don't need to worry about damaging crops that aren't quite there yet. Now, you may have also noticed that I'm starting to get some extra bonuses when I harvest. That is the level 4 coziness effect. So I did go ahead and maximize coziness to level 4 there. Unfortunately, that's actually a pretty minor effect. It's about 10% of crops. I did a test where I planted 500 wheat, and I got 561 crops out of it. So not bad, but only about 10 to 15% in there. All right, now we did get tons of wheat there, so we can go ahead and send off that milestone, or at least load the crops up on that milestone. Let's see what else we can load up. We can load up the rabbage there. Oh, I'm hesitant to do that because we actually need quite a lot of rabbage seeds. I think I want to do one more round of propagation before we do much with rabbage. But we should be able to send off, yes, we can send off, again, oh, that's so much of our fields though. I think we're going to wait on any more milestones for a little bit. That's okay. We do have some really cool stuff going on, including that transform width upgrade that we'll want to play around with soon. But for now, I think we're actually going to be okay. We have a few more crops up there as well. So let's pop up and get to these seeds processing, and then we'll take a look at how we can better equip our mech. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I know I want tons of rabbage seeds. That's going to be a major thing for me. I think I also want tons of lumbloom seeds, and we'll do more rabbage seeds here, at least to start, and then probably more wheat seeds. I think we're going to need more wheat. All right, let's go ahead and pick one of these storage boxes and just throw our crops in there. And one of the cool things about this game is that all the crops and all the storage areas are connected. So we can throw our crops into one of these boxes and it'll be just fine. It's not going to impede our ability to process them into seeds or even send them away on shipments. We can just chuck them into these boxes and they'll sort of always have easy access to them. Now you'll also notice that I'm using plant oil as my fuel. I'm even still using the reduced fuel consumption settings. If we go into game mode and look at fuel consumption, you can see that's reduced. But we have reached the point where our mech is just using so much fuel that it's hard to keep up with. That's one of the reasons I want to propagate these, is that this lumbloom oil is very, very valuable. And so I'm going to keep that going and make sure my oil presser is working to produce tons of oil for us so that we always have plenty to work with. Let's harvest up the rest of these crops real quick. And then let's pop on over and take a look at our mech's slots and see what we can do. Now, there's a few different things when it comes to working with your mech that you want to keep in mind as you are as you're setting up your loadout. Obviously, the functional side of things is very important. Can your mech do the things you need it to do? But you also need to keep an eye on fuel consumption, as well as things like carrying capacity, movement speed, and other things. So we need to make sure we're maintaining our base functions, as well as sort of leveraging all of those other challenges. All right, so let's pop on over to our mech depot and take a look at what we have. Now, one of the most powerful tools that you can use for this is loadouts. These loadouts allow you to pick and choose what you want. And by default, they're all going to be default. That's the loadout 3. I haven't modified. Uses 6 power. It's got your sort of basic Pharmech modes, and it's got your spike saw on it. That's all that's there. And that 6 power draw comes from your Pharmech mech parts, and you can go ahead and unequip those if you want. Never tried to drive a mech without any of these. Okay, so we can't even mount the mech without the parts. That's fine. I wonder though, is the windshield needed? Is that something you can take off? Or is that like the cockpit? That's the one that you need to actually get into it. Oh yeah, you can't get in without the windshield. All right, so now you've got 3 different loadouts you can work with, and I like to use loadout 1 as sort of my general purpose mech, the one which I can use to do just about anything. It's got the basics, but it's not really exceptional at anything. So for that case, I tend to put in a few inventory capacities, but also some movement speed capacity ones, and then the basic tool upgrades. That's probably the hardest loadout to do. The other 2 you can really focus on. So loadout 2, what I like to do is focus more on those transform modes, making sure that we get those maxed out, because that's going to allow us to work the farm fields a lot better. And then loadout 3 I use as my long distance sprinter loadout. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to craft up some parts, but the good news is those parts can be used regardless of which loadout you're doing. You only need sort of one set of components in order to use them in any loadout. So my goal today is going to be to craft up one of these, a full set of underframe parts, which is going to double my mod slots, and then come in here and maximize my movement speed by using 4 different sprint speed add-ons. So we'll get a 40% speed boost while we're moving, as well as our inventory capacity. And the whole point of this is that this is going to be the loadout that we use for traveling to gather resources from a distant location. We need red crystals or iron or tin or something that we can't get enough of locally. This is the mech that gets us there quickly and lets us haul tons of stuff. So that's the mech we are going to be building today, and then we'll come back and use those same to modify and upgrade our other loadouts. So we're going to go ahead and come through here and craft up each of these. And it looks like we're a little short on polyberry oil. We've got some cooking, so that's fine. Let's come on over here, and here in loadout 3 we can go ahead and make sure that we have our engine upgraded, our arms, and our legs. We don't actually need to upgrade our windshield at this time, but we do want the arms and legs. That big flying, yeah, that's so cool. I love that thing. All right, so we have one more to do, which is the right leg. So let's come on in here and make sure we have a mission for that so that we can see what we need for polyberry oil. And then I also want to start modifying this. So this engine, we're going to load up with inventory capacity. Same with these arms. Now these arms, we could instead use hauling capacity, for example. We don't need to use the inventory capacities. However, I find that generally the inventory capacity is a better bang for your buck because it gives you the option to teleport home. You can't teleport while you're holding the big items. And at this stage of the game, we're traveling far enough and we're traveling slowly enough that I want to do that. So even though we'll be putting those sprint speed boosters on the legs, I still want to be using the inventory upgrades for now. I think once we unlock the Mark II sprint speed boosters and we're able to be getting like 90% speed boost instead of 40% speed boost, then that's when we'll want to switch over some of those inventories to hauling to allow us to carry the large rocks, because in theory, at that point, we would be able to walk home with like 12 big, copper chunks, which is huge, right? It just takes a long time, but if we can double our sprint speed, that'll go a long way for us. All right, so we should have enough to craft, yes, that other leg upgrade. So let's go ahead and get that thing built and equipped. Perfect. And in order to finish this customization out, we need 3 more sprint speed upgrades, because we only had 1 of those, and we're going to need 2 more inventory upgrades. Let's go ahead and place those on there so we can see what we're going to need for them as we go about. It looks like we're going to be a little bit short on just copper and on copper wire as well. So let's grab a little bit of copper from some of the node clusters that are around, and then craft some of it into copper wire real quick. All right, looks like we're going to need a bunch of copper wire. So we'll just go ahead and craft up. Yeah, we'll say 36. We got 54 out of it. That's awesome. And then we still have tons of leftover copper as well. And we can go ahead and store that, because we do not need to be carrying all that copper wire around all the time. All right, and then we can come on in here and we want 1, 2, 3 more sprint speed, and 1 and 2 inventory capacity. Now we can come on over here, get all of those upgraded and equipped. All right, and that is our transport mech loadout all complete for now. We'll obviously be working on this more as we get some more of those upgrades. We're up to 36 of 44 components here. And you can see we've got the inventory and sprint speed capacities all in, as well as a full set of tools, including their upgrades. So this is going to be a great mech for working around the farm, but really focused on traveling when we need to travel. That's going to be the big thing it is used for. Now, one of the cool things is we can come in here to some of these other loadouts. So this loadout 1, which we had, this loadout 2, which we had used as sort of our farm mech, we may want to also have some of these upgrades to it. So we can come on in here and equip some of these underframe components that are sort of tuned for the other one. And as long as we have the space in our power limit to accommodate it, we can sort of mix and match what we want there. So this will give us access to our tractor upgrades on loadout 2, but still with the increased inventory capacity. One of the challenges that we're going to run into with upgrading our mech is that as our power level goes up, so does our fuel consumption. And that's one of the reasons that I'm pushing these advanced crops a little more, is that the oil that comes from those advanced crops is so good. And all it takes is a little bit of extra time in order to get them, but we do need to, actually take that time to sort of propagate out those seeds. So that's why I'm not sending off this zapper twig, and instead focusing on getting it all planted and growing for us here. Now, sometimes there are also choices that we want to make. So for example, if we take for our general purpose mech, I went ahead and threw everything that we had on, and we are actually short 2 power slots, or 2 sort of power limit. And that is for the resource harvest vacuum add-on. If we go ahead and equip that, you'll see we go over that. So we can make the choice there between using the field harvester and that field resource harvest vacuum. And I think I'm actually going to choose the resource harvest vacuum instead of the field harvester for now. And then loadout 2, we're going to focus on using that field harvester at the expense of that resource harvest vacuum. So we can always swap it out as we see fit. But that will allow us to sort of optimize all of those components for sort of different purposes and differing uses. All right, and so with those mech loadouts done, let's go ahead and jump ahead a few days. I'm going to keep working through crops and sending off packages, and we'll take another look when it's time to send off the next milestone, because there's some really major mech upgrades attached to that I want to get in and play around with as part of this episode. So we're going to be holding off on some of the things. So for example, we have the merchant landing. Build that for now. I'm going to wait to build that until we're able to send off that milestone and take a look at those mech parts. We'll do that probably in our next episode, but for now, let's jump ahead and take a look at some of these other mech parts that we'll be unlocking right here real soon. All right, it has been just a couple of days, and I managed to send off a few more milestones. We basically did our entire field up here with Ravage and then some honey bottle. So all this phosphoric soil was all Ravage. and that is all done and harvested. We've got a couple places where we missed watering. We'll leave those be and focus on replanting soon. But with those taken care of, we now have the ability to send off this milestone and or send off this shipment and unlock the next milestone. And this is a super exciting one because it's going to really expand what we can do with our transform modes in our mech, and really expand and open up sort of the farming side of the game with it. And so let's go ahead and get this sent away and take a look at what that's going to require. Now, this is going to require a significant amount of resource gathering for us to do, but you can see we have the oil presser 2, we have the outpost, which is how we can get into some other advanced game systems. We'll take a look at that. We have access to fertilizer at this point, and these are all things we'll take a look at soon when we revisit sort of the mid-game farming techniques, or mid to late game farming techniques as they exist right now. But let's focus right now on the mech upgrades. So we've got a whole bunch of other stuff, but the mech upgrades we are getting are really nice. We've got the Field Plow Mark II, the Fertilizer Spreader, which is another transform mode, and then we have the inventory capacity, sprint speed, and hauling capacity Mark II, as well as the transform mode width. That's the big one. We also have tractor movement speed and active speed, as well as a handful of other bits. And we'll take a look at each of these in their own time, but for now we are going to focus on those transform modes. Just real quick though, I do want to see what our next milestone has for us, just so I can plan ahead there. I think that's going to be one of the big ones. I think it's going to let us automate. Yes, let us automate water. The watering drone station is going to be so big. We also have a few other significant upgrades in there as well. But for now, we can focus on these mech transforms. Now, the challenge we're going to run into with these mech transforms is that they're going to require iron components. We go into our parts crafting and we take a look at the mod crafting. So our sprint speed and inventory capacity are significant upgrades. They require iron electronics as well as bronze parts. And then our go into our transform mode upgrades. Our transform mode width is the big one there. That's also iron electronics as well as bronze electronics and aluminum wire. So we're going to have to start gathering tons of new materials, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get these farm loadouts done, is that now I have the capacity to go a little bit further afield and do all of those things. In fact, we already have gathered during some of that downtime a little bit of the iron we're going to need. So let me build another furnace, because our furnaces are both working on bronze right now, and we're going to need enough bronze that I don't necessarily want to break those up. But we'll go ahead and craft up another furnace, start it on iron, and then head out and see what we can do with finding aluminum and finding some of the other things. So we've got iron here, and iron is probably one of the biggest challenges in terms of like resource availability, because it is tremendously heavy. Each iron ore weighs 5 units of stuff, and it takes 2 to craft a single iron bar. And then if we go over to our assembler, the iron electronics takes 2 iron bars. So that's 5, or basically 20 weight of ore for a single iron electronics, plus the aluminum wire, which we're also going to need. And iron frames are even more and also require bronze. And then we also need honey bottle oil, which is also going to be a challenge for us. So we can go ahead and start crafting up some of that right now. But the rest of our honey bottle really needs to go into seeds. We haven't been propagating as much of that. Let's get that going. And we'll keep an eye out for honey bottle while we're up in the mountains, because we're going to need it. All right, let's go ahead and pop up into the mountains, see if we can't gather some iron. I do have our full mech loadout here. We are on our sprint mode mech, so we should be able to move pretty quickly and carry a great deal. Iron is just so heavy. No matter what we do, we're not going to get very much of it, but we will grab what we can. And I think there's actually some aluminum up just up these train tracks here. I think this train tracks, one of the reasons I like this location is the transition into iron is easy. There's a fair bit of iron down in the Hexagon Valley, and then there's also some right up here in Frost Peak Ridge. And so I'm going to head up into the Frost Peak Ridge because we're short on honey bottles, which grow there naturally. So maybe we'll find some honey bottles that we can use to craft some oil or make up some more seeds. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter. The aluminum and the iron are going to be pretty common in both places. All right, we're starting to see these small iron deposits up here in Frost Peak Ridge. We'll just go ahead and pick those up as we go. And there are also a large number of large iron deposits here along the river. And as we head up further, we'll see more and more of those. This is a really valuable place to find iron. I think there's also some aluminum here as well. All right, we've come up to the river here. And you can see we've got some iron deposits. These are the ones that I had mined out earlier. There's some iron chunks there. There's also some silver up here. Interesting. I thought we had aluminum up here, but maybe the aluminum is someplace different. All right. The silver is also very heavy. We'll go ahead and grab up a few chunks of that because I'm not sure when we're going to need it. And then gather up what we can in terms of iron. Now, iron is tricky. These rocks are heavier. We can only carry one. So we're going to go ahead and break as much of this and fill our inventory completely as much as we can. And then we will grab a single iron rock on the way back home to throw into our mineral decompressor there. But you can see we're already just filling up our inventory so fast with all of this iron. It's so heavy, and it makes it such a pain to travel with large amounts of it. Actually, I think, you know what we're going to do this time? Rather than running down the mountain with this iron... Right. All right, let's go ahead and teleport back home, and if we need more iron, we can head into the Hexagon Valley and see if that's got the aluminum we're also going to need. So we can pop up here, make sure this furnace is crafting up the iron for us. Good. Let's head down into Hexagon Valley and see if we can't find a bit more. All right, here in the Hexagon Valley, the biggest iron deposits I've found really are just sort of over here on the eastern side. You've just got tons and tons of these pillars here, so you can go ahead and break those. And it's not too common. As you head further to the west, you see more of the coal pillars and less of the iron, but you really get a decent mix wherever you go. And there's also some aluminum over here, so we can grab a couple of those stones and then head on back. All right, and a day of gathering and exploration later, we have enough iron that we should be able to start doing some of these parts. So what I want to do is head over to our loadout to make sure we have plenty of room for our upgrades. And that may mean dropping some of these sprint speed or inventory capacities. Again, loadout 2 is not meant to leave the farm. It's something we only use while we're here. So I want to see how much energy we're going to need to make sure we can maximize our field plow and field harvester. And then we'll make room for that with the other ones. And in particular, what I want to look at here are the transform mode width ones. That I think is going to be our biggest one. Let's go ahead and create a mission for that. And mode width bracket. And that will let us know what we need. So we're going to need aluminum wire. We have 18, so we are good there. But we're going to need 2 bronze electronics and 2 iron electronics. Let's see what we can do about that. So iron electronics is aluminum wire and iron bar. We should be able to handle that. Let's make 4 so we can make 2 of these. And oh, we got lucky and got 7 out of that. And then bronze electronics is nickel ore and bronze bar. We have that. So let's make 5 of those. And we got 8 of those, so even better. So we should be able to actually make 3 and really like amp up our transform mode width. Now the issue with that is that transform mode width is something we're going to want for both of these, and it looks like we're a little bit short on the aluminum wire for making a third one. Let's go ahead and do that because that I think is going to be the biggest sort of bang for our buck in terms of what we can get out of it. So let's make up a little bit of aluminum wire there. Perfect. And we'll demonstrate that here in just a minute. Craft up another transform mode width there. And now if we come into our customization and let's say we want to use our field plow to start, we can go ahead and equip all 3 of those. And now if we head on over to our wheat field, our large wheat field back here, this is a nitrogenic field, but I've been using it almost entirely for farming wheat. Let's go ahead and transform though into our field plow. You can now see that we have a 9 wide plow. So we can go into removal mode and clear out this field just like that. Then back up to recreate it as potassic soil, which we can use to grow our phosphoric crops like our rabbage in a high yield form, or we can use for something like wheat to get the mutated version. And that is the big advantage of that transform mode, is that we now have the potential to do so much more and so much faster in terms of the tilling and harvesting. All right, we have 1,500 wheat seeds and this new freshly plowed double wide field. Let's just go ahead and get to planting. The problem is we have now once again sort of exceeded the capacity of our tools. So we're going to have to take a look at some of our other tool upgrades here probably in our next episode and see about further optimizing our planting, because even planting 20 seeds at a time, this is going to take a while. So if we can get that upgrade to our lock-on targets that'll let us do 50 at a time, that would be a pretty nice little bonus there. While we're at it, we could look at expanding our watering capacity and other such things as well. All right, and I think that's where we are going to leave it for today. We'll go ahead and turn in for the night. But I think we have pretty well covered the sort of all of the mech mechanics. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to do. Let me see if I have the components for it or can make the components for it. And maybe we can do one more thing here, and that is the merchant landing. So we're going to need clay and a bronze frame for that. Should be able to craft that up pretty easily. All right, let's go ahead and set up this merchant landing, and we can take a look at that in the morning. Go ahead and build it now, though. A15. Well, all right, the last thing I want to cover in today's episode is that merchant. That's going to take some time. Oh, it's a rainy day. Beautiful. So we can do a lot of planting today if we want to. We could take all of this wheat, turn it into seeds, and do some large planting. Oh, we've got so many options. Unfortunately, the field harvester, we didn't do the extra widening for. So we have a couple options there. Obviously, we can, of course, craft up more mods if we have the components for it. The other thing we can do, though, is come in here. And if we say we're not going to be doing a whole lot of plowing, then we can recycle these components, reuse these components. We can take them off of our field plow and put them on our harvester. And that way we only really need one set at a minimum. And then as we're able to gather up the extra materials, we can gather up more as we sort of see fit to do so. Let's pop on over and try out our new ultra wide field harvester here. Oh, and we have a tornado coming in. Oh no, this is terrible news. So tornadoes are a catastrophic effect. They can happen anywhere. I've had them hit me right over at the sort of starting area. They do a huge amount of damage. Flying cows everywhere. Oh, this is a disaster. It's terrible. And unfortunately, if they pick up your mech, they will also send you flying. And that is just part of the game. So I've never actually seen a tornado hit my farm. And I don't know that it can even get through the barrier. I've had them pass close a couple of times. And it is always a experience. That is wild. All right, let's do some harvesting. Got our ultra wide field harvester here. Let's go ahead and start harvesting. Interesting. We're far enough away from the wheat that we aren't necessarily automatically picking it all up. That's not something I've noticed before. All right, and our merchant friend has arrived. And that is the last thing I wanted to show you guys today. Now, the merchant is primarily used to trade seeds. And we'll take a look at that here in a second. Let me go ahead and finish harvesting these real quick. We can head on over and take a look at it. But it has another major feature to it. And that is that it is one of the ways that you can increase your power level. See, the merchant sells this item. Let's see if I can find it in here. There it is, the power core. So you can buy a whole bunch of these, and for $10,000, increase your mech power by 1. You can just buy these over and over again. Now, to earn money, you sell your crops, and that depends on what you find. So seeds aren't worth very much, but some of the crops are worth a bit more, and in particular, the mutated ones are. So we can see that a regular wheat is worth 15, but a mutated wheat is worth 45. Zapper twig has a base value of 250, mutated chromase is 270. And so, for example, we could sell off just 50 of these and get enough for a power slot upgrade. I'm not going to do that today because I think these crops are more valuable, as part of milestones. But this is one of the ways that we can upgrade it. We can also buy these other parts to our mech, and these are cosmetic parts. So, for example, the woodwork sets or the night set, which will change how our mech looks. And again, we just sell crops, buy the items. There's also a whole bunch of other buildables there, and cosmetics that you can get for your farm. The main thing that you use, but the main thing that I found the merchant is good for is these sprouts and seeds. So if I need more zapper twig seeds, I can buy some. But more importantly, we can get the tree sprouts and the rarer sprouts, things like gravel gourd or pond pitchers, from here. And so that's a way that we can increase the number that are available to us if we're having a hard time finding more out in the world. All right, and I think that's where we are going to leave it for today. I'm going to carry on with some of these plantings and start working towards the next milestone. But at this point, it's just more of the same, just planting, harvesting, sleeping through the night, and then carrying on to increase the number of crops, increase the number of plantings, and increase the number of seeds. Now I have this massive nitrogenic mound back here. That's going to be great for a huge crop of polyberries back here. We can come out of here with close to 1,000 polyberries just from this one field tomorrow, and we don't have to water it, which is so nice. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and in our next episode, we're going to talk about how we can actually start transitioning our farming to keep up with our new field size, because things like planting and watering have fallen behind, and so we will take a look at what we can do to start automating or at least increasing the efficiency of those tasks in order to make the most of the available space now that we have. So thank you for watching this. I hope that you have found this Let's Play episode / guide on the mech system in Lightyear Frontier helpful. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an epic day. I will see you soon.